was the first major barbarian threat? From the outside, barbarians are looking in. They're trying to take over more people, different people. And we're talking Achaemenid Persian Empire. They have a multicultural world empire that connects east to west. It could take a traveler 90 days to cross this entire massive map. The Persians are really tough to understand because it seems like they come out of nowhere and suddenly they have this huge map. And they're being called barbarians by the Greeks because at some point they're threatening Greek freedom. They're threatening the invention of democracy and self-government. So this lesson solves the problem. How do you understand the Persians? I'm Mr. Hall, and I want to make you a Persian Empire expert. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. This journey is for you and the Achaemenid Persian Empire. What do you need to understand? If you're coming here from lesson 18, you know the Persians conquer the Babylonians. It was one of the they're barbarians to the Babylonians, and they conquer them. If you're coming here from lesson 32, well done. Well done, because that's the Persian invasion of Greece. And you want to understand these powerful people, this massive empire. The Persians set the stage for the entire classical era, and this is lesson number 19 in your ancient history course. We're stepping into the story of the Persians to ask these big questions, discover how it shaped history and how it still shapes your journey. So in this lesson, we will first discover origins of the Medes, the Persians, trace back to the beginning of these different groups drawn together by this Cyrus the Great on his meteoric rise to power. Second, it's the statesmanship, his diplomacy. Cyrus had the policy of the Liberator and freed Jews from Babylonian captivity. Third, the expansion of this empire into Egypt. It reveals how incredible the empire administration is. They are known for being great administrators of this large empire. They built the Royal Road. So we'll get into that. And finally, it's the military bonus that you want to know, the 10,000 Immortals. It looks like they run around with lightweight wicker shields, but they never seem to go away. They're immortal. So by the end of this episode, we will level you up as a classical scholar. You'll be one step further in your journey. You will understand the Persian Empire. You are a scholar. You know geography matters, especially when flooding rivers bring abundant crops to help civilization flourish. But not this time. These Persian people, these ethnic groups, are in the Iranian plateau. They're in the Zagros Mountains. It's not a fertile paradise, but it was vast and high and beautiful. It's a land defined by these rugged mountainscapes. This politically fragmented land didn't create settled states. It's not like the story of Mesopotamia and Egypt. It forged mobile tribes who became horsemen. Their neighbors, the powerful Assyrians, didn't want land. They wanted the horses. The horses are the fuel for the Assyrian war machine. And we studied the Assyrians already in lesson 17. The Medes and the Persians were Indo-Iranian people. They migrated here around the 9th century BC. The Medes settled in the northwest. The Persians, Parsa, they settled further south. And you can see on this map where those places are indicated. You can see where the mountains, where the plateau is. But for this region to have superpowers out of either of these groups, it was the Medes who first seized greatness. By the 7th century BC, they built a powerful kingdom with its capital at Ecbatana. And what's their defining achievement? In 612 BC, the Medes and their allies, the Babylonians, they did the impossible. They sacked the invincible Assyrian capital of Nineveh. They tore that world's first large, big, mean empire, they tore it down. They tore it apart. And for a time, the Medes were the new masters. And the Persians were merely their vassals. They were the vassal states, and they would pay tribute. As a vassal, you are under a lord or a higher land, a higher power, and you paid tribute. You contributed troops. You paid tribute to the King of Kings, the Medes. This set the stage in a world that's defined by what's looking like a power vacuum in this region, right? Because with Assyria gone, the 6th century BC world was run by the 4 titans, the Medes, the Neo-Babylonians, lesson 18, the kingdom of Lydia, who we are just now learning in this lesson, and later you'll hear what they invented, and of course, the ancient power of Egypt that has seen better days. But the problem for the Medes is a new, charismatic, powerful leader named Cyrus the Great. He's not a Mede. He is from the vassal kingdom of the Persians. And the Greek historian Herodotus tells a very interesting story. Let me share it with you. It was Cyrus's grandfather, a Median king named Astyages. He had a dream that his grandson would usurp. You've heard the word usurp before, take the power away. So when King Astyages heard this prophecy, he ordered, you know what I'm going to say, he ordered that we kill the baby, but in a recognizably mythic fashion. And this is the Greek Herodotus telling the story. It has an element that might sound familiar to you. This baby was given to a humble herdsman. Young Cyrus, as a boy, appeared to have noble excellence. It was revealed when he played at being king with such authority. He was discovered as someone special. Astyages, believing that fate was actually cheated, let him live. The hubris of Astyages was going to be his downfall. By trying to stop this prophecy, he actually helps fulfill it. And the historical account is even more dramatic because Cyrus inherited the throne of Anshan around 559 BC. And in 553 BC, he did the unthinkable. He revolted against his grandfather, Astyages. The prophecy comes true. This is Herodotus telling it, but it's the story that Herodotus picked up as this Greek historian visits here. It's propaganda. It's legend that builds power. And you've heard this before, and you'll hear it again many times, right? 3 years after Astyages, some of his nobles captured their king from their region and handed him to Cyrus. Not for conquest, but for unification. Cyrus, the son of a Median princess, a Mede princess, masterfully absorbed the Median power structure. He adopted their capital, took their titles, used both Medes and Persians as officials, unifying people, and this instantly doubled his power, doubled his kingdom, transformed him from just being a minor vassal into now a great king, Cyrus the Great. It's growing, and that's when students will say, he didn't just conquer. He didn't need an army to do that. He just was a diplomat. He is the genius of it. And yeah, it is a little different. And if he can keep doing that and kind of go block by block and group by group, he can build friendships. Big contrast to the Assyrians, if you remember that. Less like a hostile military takeover and more like a merger. And it shows that Cyrus understood people, not just warfare. Cyrus then turned to the greatest prize of all, and that's Babylon. So it sets the stage a little with better detail than what we described in lesson 18 about Babylon's fall to Cyrus. Because Herodotus, the Greek historian, has a perspective. He tells a wonder and awe story of Cyrus diverting the Euphrates River to sneak under the walls. And there's cuneiform records that tell a story of the political folly. That's the story that I shared. That's the history I shared with you in lesson 18. The Babylonian king Nabonidus was an impious madman who abandoned his own capital. He was off in a different region and peninsula of Saudi Arabia and abandoned their chief god. So Cyrus, the master of propaganda, again could welcome in the unity of everybody by unifying with Marduk, the god of those people of Babylon, and not even really a battle. He was a liberator, right? Masterful guy, Cyrus the Great. The priests proclaimed Cyrus the Great was the chosen one of Marduk, and he was sent to save them. He was a liberator. So what do you think so far? Is this wisdom? Does Cyrus the Great have some potential? He's doing something a little different than you're used to compared to some of the other lessons. It's part of the classical journey as we learn. Definitely a journey into history, virtue, and wonder. You wonder what's going to happen next, as we know this is going to be a big map. The Persians are a big empire. What else can Cyrus do? He's so masterful and wise. He's conquered 2 of the 4 great powers, really, with his diplomacy and wisdom. But the next target is Lydia. Lydia, well, that's a pretty good jump on the map. Check out Lydia, part of Anatolia. We're getting closer to Greece. King Croesus is the king of Lydia. Lydia is famous because of the gold. They invent coins, which I'll cover more in lesson 20. Lydian coins, they've got gold to do it. King Croesus is probably the richest guy. He has ultimate wealth, but he's also got hubris. Croesus was ambitious. He was proud, and he wants to attack Persia. So what do you do when you need to understand, big decisions in life? You go to the oracle at Delphi. Oh, we are close to Greece, aren't we? Delphi is the center of the world. That's been covered in lesson 27 to understand. It's the center of understanding. Croesus goes to the oracle of Delphi, where you can understand with lesson 27, you can see what the oracle helps you do. Now, occasionally you can go and get very specific messages, although it's like this is not specific. The oracle gives this riddle, the riddle that's ambiguous. If you cross the Halys River, a great empire will fall. If you cross the Halys River, a great empire will fall. Croesus thinks, he assumes in his pride and his hubris, in his wealth, he assumes that this means he should go attack. He should attack. He should try to get the Persian empire and control it all for himself. So when he crosses that river, it's not even a battle. He is utterly defeated by Cyrus, captured. And this great empire that fell was the Lydian Empire. So they're kind of a one-hit wonder, but they invented coins. Lesson 20, we'll get to that. But what happened next is that fascinating lesson that helps us teach what appropriate courage, what appropriate wisdom really should be like. And we need our friend Herodotus again. So Herodotus makes his rounds and he puts in this Greek wisdom and he's telling this fable. His fable is that Cyrus places Croesus, he captures him, places him on the pyre, Pyre, the funeral pyre, to be burned. But he's not dead yet. He's going to get burned alive. And as the flames rose, Croesus cries out. He cries out the name of Solon. Solon. From lesson 30, the government guy, he invented the Greek constitution, a wise man from the past. He had once said, "Call no man happy until he is dead." He cries out to Solon. Now Cyrus reflects on kind of this instability of fortune, and he has a change of heart, and the god Apollo sent this miraculous rain to put out the fire and save Croesus. And so Croesus then became a trusted advisor to Cyrus. And it's a beautiful story about humility and the wheel of fortune. But the brutal facts are Cyrus is winning, and he's gained the wealth and the gold. And we may see that gold again as he helps one of the people that's stuck in Babylon, the Babylonian captivity. So you'll hear about that in a minute. But now, if you remember from lesson 18, Nabonidus, a contemporary Babylonian text, the Nabonidus Chronicle, gives a very different account, a very cold, saying that Cyrus marched into the land of Lydia. Cyrus killed their king. We're not having Croesus come around as an advisor. So, what do you do? How do you sort this out? The Chronicle is likely recording the fact that Croesus was executed, that Herodotus is kind of romanticizing this story. What does that mean, romanticizing the story? It's making the fable kind of bigger than it really was, and showing a moral truth about what Herodotus and the Greeks valued. They don't value hubris. They want you to be humble. And showing Croesus was not the guy, and that Cyrus is a big deal. Now, you'll understand later why pumping up Cyrus and making him a big deal, and I'm telling from this Greek perspective because Cyrus should be this great, huge deal, because if you could ever take him down, how does that make you look if you do take down the mighty Persians? So that's all coming later. But it's undeniable. The most famous act of Cyrus comes when he conquers Babylon. He issues the revolutionary decree concerning the conquered people, the people that are in Babylonian captivity. Most notably, the Jewish people. The tribe of Judah had been exiled from Judah, from Jerusalem. Their temple had been torn down. The Jewish people are in Babylon, and Cyrus says, why are Jews living in Babylon? In an effort to put an end to Jews and beliefs and monotheism, the Babylonians had moved them there as a way to keep them subdued, to oppress their conquered people. But Cyrus sees this much differently. We've already seen it in the way he is taking over some of these places. So what about returning the Jews, letting the Jews go back? In the book of Ezra, in the Bible, there is a record. Cyrus is authorized for the tribe of Judah to return to their homeland, to return to Zion. This is the book of Ezra. This is to not only restore the people to their homeland, but to rebuild the temple. Cyrus even finances the rebuilding of the temple. He returns thousands of sacred gold and silver vessels. He's got all the Lydian gold that he can contribute. And so in Jewish memory, in the book of Ezra, Cyrus is still the liberator. Great messaging, Cyrus the Great. So this is a masterpiece of Cyrus, and it's also in the Cyrus Cylinder. This archaeological piece of evidence, the Cyrus Cylinder, is a clay cylinder. It's supposed to be read by the gods, and it's giving an account. It's like a human rights charter in a way, but it's the Babylonian version of what's going on. And the main point of it is to get Marduk, the god, the patron god, back in charge. Have Cyrus be the man, the genius, the great leader who restores, who liberates the Babylonian people and puts Marduk back in charge. And in Jerusalem, he is allowing the Jewish people to have Yahweh back in charge, to rebuild the temple, the holy place. It's recognizable in the way cultures have a god of a place, but the Jewish people are different because they are monotheistic. And Jerusalem is the only place. The temple was the only place where the presence of God and the Ark of the Covenant and the history and the religious belief from the Bible. Cyrus is pragmatic, and he really understands the multicultural significance of treating people well. These different ethnic groups, they'll be a part of the Persian Empire. Stark contrast to the Assyrians, right? And when I'm teaching this in the classroom, kids can see it. They can line up their maps. I will have kids put all of these empires on one map. And not only are the Persians the biggest amount of land, but they also are governing better. And they're not making enemies out of every single group. And it's not going to be the reason for their fall. But I digress, and we'll get to all of this. It is definitely the timeless story of the struggle. How do you do this? How do you build this empire? How do you maintain it? And Cyrus had incredible policies that are quite interesting. And his tolerance of the local people, it's a moral virtue that helped him to be known and to be buried. You can see his tomb here is still a place that you could visit in modern Iran. This country is difficult to access, to say the least, but his tomb is still a tourist attraction, and Cyrus has left his mark on many cultures and history. What do you think? Does Cyrus teach a timeless lesson? Put your opinion in the comments. Leave a comment. What do you think about Cyrus's diplomacy and being a liberator to so many of these civilizations? If you have not yet clicked the like button, please click it. Leave your comments. We appreciate your support. Cyrus does have a son, Cambyses II. So when Cyrus dies, his son Cambyses II inherits a final important task, conquering Egypt, the last of the four great powers. So a decisive battle is fought at Pelusium, 525 BC. However, the foundation is built on a critical flaw, or in this case, a critical belief. How did the Persians defeat Egypt, the ancient power of Egypt that you know so much about in so many classical kingdom lessons? Cambyses II unleashed a psychological warfare. According to this account, he knew that the Egyptians held deep religious reverence for cats, which were sacred to the goddess Bastet. Cambyses' forces advanced behind a line of sacred cats. What? How do you have a sacred line of cats? The Egyptian archers are faced with an impossible choice. If these are sacred cats, what do the archers shoot at? They faltered. And to fire their arrows that might kill a cat is sacrilege. Sacrilege. What is sacrilege? It is going against the religion, against your beliefs. It would be punishable by death, and for Egyptians, eternal loss of their soul. They would not join in the Egyptian afterlife. So the Persian line, protected by this divine shield of cats, broke through. But a societal shift created some unexpected consequences, this battle of narratives. Once again, let's listen to Herodotus. Herodotus paints Cambyses as a crazy king, driven mad by what do the Greeks despise the most? Hubris. He lists his crimes mocking Egyptian gods. Now, did you have that perspective? Did you think that when I mentioned the cats and putting a line of cats out, did you think that that's disrespectful? Mocking Egyptian gods. This is what Herodotus is pointing out, his greatest crime. Mortally wounding the sacred Apis bull was another. This narrative of Persian madness became the normal way to talk about what's going on here. It was Greek messaging, Greek propaganda. And this is after the fact when Herodotus is pointing this out, but this is now what is being portrayed. The archaeological evidence is not going to quite back up what Herodotus is saying, but do you understand the way it creates an image? It's building a brand, if you will, message that people react to. You respond to this. Now, if you go to the actual sarcophagus for this Apis bull that died during the exact time, we think, it's been discovered and the hieroglyphics show that Cambyses himself piously depicted himself as the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. What is that? What does that mean when you are the king of Upper and Lower Egypt? Remember, Upper and Lower Egypt, you have united, and that king would make Cambyses a pharaoh, and that bull had to be treated properly. And in this battle of narratives, the story of a mad Cambyses, a crazy Cambyses, is almost certain to be a form of Greek slander against this rival barbarians. Barbarians, who called them barbarians? It's the Greeks. And it's rival messaging because the Egyptian priests tell a different perspective. Now, the reality is Cambyses was probably not crazy. He was pretty pragmatic in order to take over the Egyptians. That's not an easy thing to do. And to be a Persian on the throne of Egypt as a pharaoh, trying to continue his father's policies and let local people have their local religions, their beliefs, liberate them, support them. But it leads to a central struggle here, that the empire is huge and you're juggling all these different beliefs now. You've got Egyptians, you've got the Jews, you've got you got the Babylonians. So at its height, under a different Persian king, Darius the First, you've got 5.5 million square kilometers, which is the largest map that I could even show you in this ancient history series. This will be the biggest until Alexander the Great. So how do you rule all this? Well, they had a system. So now we're going to learn the satrap who will lead a satrapy. The satrapy. Look at this map. Look at the map of satrapies. Provinces. What do you see when you look at this? Provinces or states. They are the regions that are politically defined by the people in charge. That's the Persians. It's organized. There's geography. There's a satrap in charge of the satrapies. And each ruled like a viceroy, like a local governor, a mini king. A mini king. Do you want to be a mini king responsible for collecting taxes, for making good laws, for keeping trade? Oh, because this is a peaceful empire. We want trade. We want safe travel, because they want infrastructure. They want people to be able to get from one end to the other in a safe, united empire. You still, though, are going to have problems with rebellion. Not everybody wants to be ruled. Not everybody wants to be a vassal state. The excellence of this Persian system was it did have a lot of checks and balances to try to watch out for this danger and the split of the power. Now, the satrap was the administrator, the head guy, but the general of the garrison and the chief financial officer did not actually report to the satrap, who's supposed to be a mini king. Shouldn't the mini king be in charge of everything, but not military, not the chief financial guy? They reported to the great king. So at the time of Darius, or somebody like Cyrus, the great king in charge. And to ensure that all three stayed loyal. Oh, wait, loyalty. What do you think about loyalty? Did you think already that all of these provinces, look at the map, all of these different people, so many different cultures and language, and you thought loyalty? Why would they be loyal to a Persian emperor, a Persian great king? Secret police, the secret service, the king's ear, the king's eye. He had spies that would report to him, and that included these other loyal people, the chief financial officer, the military that was going to give the king information, understanding, spy. This system was effective. So effective that it's going to be copied by Alexander the Great. It's going to be used by the Romans. Don't give too much power to the satrap, to the viceroy, to the local mini king. And there will be lots of those people, but they won't have unlimited power and high authority. But let's talk about one of the great accomplishments. With the loyalty, with the peace, with the strength of this large empire, let's build a road. A road that's going to span pretty much across the whole thing. Take a look at the map. This is called the Royal Road, one of the great accomplishments of the Persian Empire, the Royal Road. With the Silk Road kind of running alongside and connected with the Royal Road, this highway is the main artery of the empire. It stretches 1,677 miles from Susa all the way to the western outpost of Sardis. Let's remember Sardis. You can see Susa. You can see Sardis. A normal journey would take 3 months. Now, how do you speed that up, especially for messages? Messaging is so important in this. And royal messages on the Royal Road, the Persians invented the solution, the Piradagish, the world's first great postal relay system, like the Pony Express, the post office. Along this road, 111 different postal stations are built with fresh horses. Sorry, not built with fresh horses. They're built. They have fresh horses. They had mounted couriers. What's a courier? What's a mounted courier? It's the messenger guy on a horseback. And he would ride at maximum speed, day and night, in all kinds of weather, and relay, like a relay race. The king's messaging could cover this 90-day journey. How long? How long do you think it would take? This is the first Pony Express, the postal system. It is 9 days. 9 days, 1/10 of the normal, to get those messages across. This is a great accomplishment. The Persian Royal Road, Persian couriers, the post office system that they had. And you get frustrated when your messages are stuck, they're not popping up. And this is the way information would move on a network that's the fastest one ever, coming up to 500 BC. So how would you feel as a satrap, knowing that the king's spies are looking over your shoulder, but you do have mini king power, and the messages that you need to send about your loyalty could travel faster than anything we've ever seen? What would you have done as a satrap? Does it sound like a good system to you? Once again, leave it in the comments and consider how this system compares with so many other empires we've already studied. You know, all of the different lessons. There are so many at classicalkingdoms.com. And make sure that you've got a chance to look at all 72 of these lessons as part of your complete ancient history course, classicalkingdoms.com. How about a bonus look at what else holds together a big empire? More than just good administration, the satrapies, the roads, the royal roads, the fast post office, and the spies that help keep the many kings in line. You need military. And the Persians' crown jewel of their military machine are the Immortals. The Immortals, that's 10,000s of the elite fighters. And the name comes from our Greek friend Herodotus. Why are they called Immortals? The wonder of this group is why they never go down. There's always 10,000 of them. They're immortal. If somebody fell sick, if they're killed, if they're injured, the replacement immediately gets called up and goes into place, and it creates kind of a psychological effect, kind of a futile feeling about fighting against these people because they are unrelenting in their power and their force. In a military fight, they are immortal. Oh, and by the way, not just anybody gets to be one of the Immortals. These soldiers are selected from the original. Who were the two original groups? The Medes and the Persians. You have to be a noble You have to be from a noble family, from Medes, Persians. The training was rigorous. From age 5, you're taught to ride a horse, to use a bow and arrow, and to be virtuous, to be hardworking. And you get support. So this elite fighting force is kind of the tip of the spear. What do you call that? The Marines. They're kind of the elite people that go out there because they're supported by the full army, which is the professional standing army. But also there is a conscripted army from the satrapies. You know that when you're taken over, when you're a part of this empire, you have to pay tributes like taxes. And sometimes that meant contributing men. Conscripted men, conscripted fighters. What's a conscripted fighter? You know, from whatever culture they are placed in there. They have an obligation to serve. They may be paid. King Darius introduced a special gold coin, the Daric coin, one of the first great imperial currencies that was used to pay soldiers, keep them happy, get paid in coins. Not everybody got paid coins. But this entire military machine does have a hidden fatal flaw. Equipment. Light scale armor. Now, why would they use light wicker works shields, wicker reed shields? So these are like woven shields. Why would they use light armor at a time when the Bronze Age is come and gone? They've been using bronze shields, bronze helmets. Iron Age is here. Why are they using such light? The idea is you can move very swiftly across a battlefield, lighter weight. You know, when we get to the Greeks, this, famous lesson 32 that maybe you came back to, you're going to find out that the Athenians are carrying about 60 or 70 pounds of bronze and armor. They're heavily armored, but the Persians saw it differently. And this is a fatal flaw. Against heavy bronze armored fighters, Persian wicker shields are no match, which brings great conflict and defeat when it comes to heavily armored enemies. So you have just witnessed the creation of the world's first multicultural, massive empire, better than the Assyrians, better than the Babylonians. It stretches farther and is connecting east to west, quite literally. And you've seen the birth of these nomadic horse tribe people from the early days of the Medes and the Persians. Cyrus the Great rises up and does some very clever things, teaches us a lot of good lessons, which is why we had our Greek historian Herodotus to help explain it to us. That the power of the 10,000 Immortals is an impressive military machine and their administrative machine. What are you going to carry forward from this age? This is lesson number 19, and you may just want to skip all the way to 32. Don't do it. See if you can, build up to what that conflict is really going to mean. But I think you've already heard. And this is the classical approach to understanding how East meets West and what the development of the West is going to mean. Because the Persian threat, as they call it, the barbarians at the gates, it's a concern. And it affects the development of Western civilization, the right to rule yourself and democracy. And we are taught many lessons along the way. This lesson is that the Persians are impressive and they are historical, and they really matter in the way they created this empire and the way they treated their people and the way they get treated by the Greeks is going to reveal a lot of truth in history. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, and that includes your history, some classical truth for your journey, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.